Hi friends, host Eric here. Host Talking with Famous People. I'm here with Steve, who is an ENFJ and who made an interesting observation before I came in here that I'll have to talk about later in a different video. But this video here is about response to Concord 298. That's a bunch of ethics questions. I like answering ethics questions and I like these kind of questions. Not everybody likes videos about this kind of stuff, so if you like videos about ethics, then here you go. I'll have some responses and questions to your response to my questions. Here you say there's nothing wrong with wanting vengeance against a person who has transgressed unjustifiably. I agree with this. However, my main problem is that before doing this, is the person who's taking vengeance properly detected whose actual fault is? Is it the real fault of the transgressor or the situation which made him like this? How should we determine this? What should be done in the following cases? Number one, for example, a terrorist. He's been told how evil and corrupt Westerners are and how they have killed their innocents and goes and kills a few people. Once made aware of the truths, he fully agrees that he did wrong. In this situation, isn't his acknowledgement of the wrongdoing enough? People who lost their family members should get some compensation, but his retribution against this person is apologetic and will be apologetic necessary. Is it sensible to get mad at a rock which fell on someone and killed him? Well, the problem is we can't know the authenticity of his apology, but we can know the authenticity of his crime. So we want to make sure that the response is concrete in the fashion that the crime is, not abstract in the fashion that the apology or the remorse is. Those things are potentially relevant factors, and I'm of the belief that the passage of time makes continual punishment less necessary for many crimes. So, there's a matter of involving the affected parties and having them have some say in how much they continue to wish for that punishment. And if they do, then that's cause enough. We don't want to subject those victims to further victimization by denying them justice. And I think that's really what happens. In the previous example, suppose the terrorists are not taking revenge for murder, but simply killing Westerners because they will never change and always be painted as culture. What should be done in this example? Well, I see terrorists as criminals regardless of what their motivations are. I don't afford them special distinction because they're terrorists. I see them as somebody who transgresses against other people who are not themselves guilty of transgression. It's all about individuals, ultimately. The individual has to be accountable for his behavior because it's the only party who ever takes action is an individual. What about a dictator who killed people not because of fun, because he thought they will always bring suffering to his people? It doesn't matter what his motivations are. That's the beautiful thing about a negative rights framework, is it doesn't matter what their motivations are. The action is transgressive or it's not. The person is punished for purposes of retributive and rehabilitative justice, presumably. But it's the act that's immoral, not the person. So people who consistently do bad acts, you might consider evil or immoral, but we don't adjudicate people. We adjudicate actions. Suppose there's a pedophile who agrees his tendencies are harmful or wrong. He agrees he should be put somewhere where he will not have access to children. Suppose he says that he won't be able to control himself if he got access to a kid and is sorry for it. Then should we say that, he's a good person, just can't control his physical tendencies? Say what kind of idiot is he can't control himself? I agree we should prevent harm, but should this person be punished? Suppose he says, yes, I'm the worst person, but if I get access to a kid, I will go ahead and I'll stop myself. I don't accept this notion of not being able to stop yourself. I'm attracted to women. That doesn't mean I go up and fondle them. It's transgressive because children aren't old enough to consent. And besides that, it's using other people as means to an end. Fundamentally, it violates the deontological principle. Children aren't old enough to to engage in that in any way other than being used as a means to the adult's end. So it's deontologically wrong implicitly. And, you know, it's exactly where to draw the line is tricky. That's a tricky one, right? Like, you know, you get a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, right? Are you going to arrest that guy? What if the 19-year-old's the chick? Does it make a difference? You know, those things are tricky. But as far as directly children, like prepubescent children, there's one's if a person is sexually attracted to them, well, then that's his problem or her problem to deal with. There's no excuse for transgression, and there's no excuse for having sex with children. So, obviously, those people need to be punished. Should they be then prohibited from entering back into society? No, they shouldn't, because they committed a crime. They don't have some sort of disease. Okay, I just don't accept that. That's a way to avoid accountability. You have the responsibility not to have sex with children. So, if you do, you're a criminal scumbag. And as a consequence, you need to be put in jail or something. And when you get out, you are back in amongst society. There shouldn't be additional restrictions against you. I don't agree with this notion that we ought to prevent harm in the fashion of tossing on additional punishments after a person's done his time. So, you know, if he's really that mentally ill, that he's a danger to himself and others, then he should be committed to a mental institution under those terms. Let's go on to the next one. Suppose there's an assassin who killed indiscriminately. He says he does this because whether he does it or not, those people will be killed somehow. He just does it to get some money. He's willingly not choosing to help those innocents who he's killing. Should he be punished? Suppose he never gets caught, then should he continue doing what he does, or instead be doing what he should keep trying to help every innocent by saying that whatever way he concluded that those innocents will be killed no matter what, he could be wrong, and even though the logic behind it seems completely correct, should he still stick to altruism because he could have done something wrong with his logic? It's utilitarianism. He's presuming that he can predict how things are going to play out, and that's how he should make his moral decision making. But that's not a normative framework because it doesn't give you actual indications about the permissibility and permissibility of an action prescribed or considered to be undertaken in advance. It doesn't tell you whether or not it's moral until after you've done it and measured the outcomes. So, utilitarianism is evil. What do you think about feeling guilty of not having more children? Suppose the situation is that resources are so abundant that having lots of kids will not be harmful to anything. Then what about feeling guilty that by choosing not to have more kids, we're preventing those unborn people the gift of life? They aren't unborn people. They aren't anything except an idea in your head right now until they're conceived. So, there's no guarantee you're going to even get anybody pregnant. Suppose we can ensure that all kids born will always be good people. Well, what, remove free will? That's not gonna. You can't be a person and also be guaranteed to be good. Being a person means having the ability to commit evil. Can we look at a rock and say if we were to arrange the atoms in a particular way, we could make a person? No. Those atoms we need other atoms besides those ones. And so, should we go ahead and do that because why stopping someone from living? I'm unable to process why this is all wrong. It's not all seems wrong. It's not wrong. I mean, well, not morally wrong. It is wrong, but it's not morally wrong. To not have children. What if those psychopaths just can't detect the pain of another person most of the time, but do detect it some of the time and stop? What about making fun of another person or pranking them physically somehow? Like if someone plays a joke on someone because the other person's stupid. Alright, well, I think that there are metaphysical crimes that deserve metaphysical punishments. So, if somebody is bullying somebody, then they ought to be shamed for it. It's an appropriate response. They ought to incur the natural consequences of a group that enforces good social mores. but that's each of our responsibilities to. And the thing is, the good social mores win the arguments. So somebody being mean is putting themselves at risk. If they do it in front of somebody who's strong, they'll smack them down. Metaphorically, So the thing is, we have within us already the solution to things like bullying, which is, as a group, as individuals, we must take advantage of opportunities to enforce group mores that are good, and the way to do that is shame. Metaphysical actions exist without any physical action. Well, speaking is a metaphysical action that is a bridge between the metaphysical and physical world, but that it operates purely on a metaphysical plane. So, yeah, basically, if I'm calling you names, I'm not doing anything to you physically, but I'm still taking an action that impacts you. Well, look, we are metaphysical and physical beings. He says here, does this imply thinking is a physical action? No, it's the confluence. Your consciousness, your conscious expression of self, is the confluence of two sets of vectors, one physical and one metaphysical. And the configuration of your personality type is how you relate to those vectors. So, as an ENTP, I metaphysically act first, and thus I come up with words first and foremost. I'm a battler on the metaphysical plane. So, as somebody who's dealing all the time in words and arguments and stuff like that, when I see metaphysical crimes of sorts, I tend to step up and do something about it. But not everybody has those same skill sets, and some people cannot do it well. For example, Kimberly's always getting pushed around by other people's words because she's not good at arguing. That's why she's supposed to be with me, and that never happens anymore. Why emotional harm should not be legally responded to? Freedom of speech is fine, but the person who is harming others, considered how he could be wrong. Did he completely process the harm he's doing to another person? Look, I'm not disputing that something like prolonged bullying is immensely harmful, more so than, say, being victimized by a violent crime, even. Like, if I get held up and somebody steals my wallet, that's bad, but if I get bullied for a while in school, that's way worse. I agree with you. In terms of measuring the harms, we have to say that ought to be punished in some way. But the fact is, it's true, it ought to be punished in some way. It ought to be punished by commensurate shaming. There are metaphysical solutions to metaphysical problems. We don't need to start transgressing against people's bodily integrity in order to get them to stop bullying. It lacks inherency, that solution, which means there's no barrier in the status quo to us preventing bullying by enforcing by leveraging social mechanisms to affect the change that we ought to. So that's the thing about that. I don't know what 1025 is about. Can you give some guidance if someone wants a response from you on what should be done and considered? Let me see what 1025 says.
He wants to run for president. I'm not sure how busy you are. He wanted to know when I was going to make this video. All these things are very good questions, and they have to do with the challenge that any politician or anybody who's common enough.
I don't know how to get in touch with me. This what you're doing, it depends on a lot of things. I have no answer for you. Basically, is what I'm saying. I have no answer for you because those kind of questions, I hate those kind of questions. Okay, should I be called a particularist? As I look back, it's always been, don't harm the ones who should not be harmed. If I try to maximize the good in the world, I have made different decisions in similar situations. Okay, well, here's what if you fail to find a common principle that applies to everyone and every time, does that make you a particularist? Isn't utilitarianism a principle at all as well? No, utilitarianism is not a principle, although it masquerades as one, okay? Now, there's plenty of people who would disagree with me about this. Most people would say utilitarianism is a normative framework, but I say bullshit because it's only descriptively normative. It's not prescriptively normative, so that's the problem. It doesn't tell you what to do. Or more particularly, it doesn't tell you what not to do. It tries to tell you what to do. Okay, so here's my take on it. I'm a particularist in terms of what I ought to do, and I'm a principalist in terms of what I ought not to do. So I think that there are universal principles that tell us what we ought not to do, that constrain us, to tell us what is morally impermissible. And that is specifically the deontological notion, plus negative rights, so that there should be responsive force. Anyway, but as a particularist, it's a question of how do I be a good person is what I can't do, and how do I fulfill my destiny is what I must do. And there's no universal in terms of must. Each of us has to figure that out for ourselves, in whatever capacity you do. And to refuse to figure that out, to deny the possibility of figuring out that you have a destiny, is to devolve into nihilism. So I reject that. Thus, I have a destiny. Exactly what mine is, I don't know. I'm figuring it out still. But it has something to do with this. Okay, so this thing here. Why is there no obligation of positive action on a public policy level? Suppose there's a murder going on, which you could have stopped but didn't because you just didn't feel like it. Does this make it okay? Suppose society decides it will execute people who are not empathetic enough so that all people left are the ones who have a lot of empathy, better performing. Is anything wrong with that? Everything seems wrong with this society. Will do better in every aspect. Shouldn't evolution be considered the best judge of right and wrong? Is not being good enough crime? Will you kill yourself if it meant betterment for everyone? Alright, well, those are all things that presume things that aren't possible. So, if there's a murder going on, which I could have stopped but didn't because I didn't feel like it, you'd have to know what was going on in my head. You'd have to know that's why I didn't stop it. I wouldn't know exactly why I didn't stop it. The answer is not very clear cut. Thing is, if I murder somebody, that's clear cut. It's a bright line. So it's impermissible. If I fail to stop a murder, you have to know what's going on inside my head to know why I failed to stop it. Inaction is a state of being. Action is a state of doing. You shouldn't be able to commit crimes by being. Everything seems so. This thing that executing people who are not empathetic enough, you have to be able to measure it, and there's not going to ever be any consensus on it. The only thing that you can be universalist about are shit that you can draw clear, bright lines about. So principles of non-transgression are how you be good, and principles of altruism are how you do good. Okay, so thanks for all those excellent, interesting questions. I love answering normative questions, and this is just right in my wheelhouse. So rock on, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Thanks for watching. Any comments from anybody here? I haven't been looking at the rooms. I'm looking at these comments. No. Okay, cool. Bye.